April 13th, 2013. Royal Randwick, Sydney, Australia. Black Caviar walked onto the track with a perfect record behind her and an entire country watching. 24 races, 24 wins, no defeats, no second places, no excuses. For almost 4 years, every horse that had stood against her had left beaten. Some had tried to match her speed early. Some had waited and hoped she would come back to them late. Some had traveled from other parts of the world. Some had carried reputations of their own. None of it had mattered. Black Caviar kept winning. Now she was back in front of an Australian crowd for what would become the final race of her career. The race was the T.J. Smith Stakes, a major sprint at Royal Randwick. The crowd was packed with fans wearing salmon pink and black spots, the famous racing colors that had become linked with her rise. They had not come just to see a horse race. They had come to see perfection survive one more time. The question was not whether she was famous. She was already a national icon. The question was whether she could finish the story without ever losing. In racing, perfection is almost impossible. Horses stumble. They get blocked. They have bad days. They meet the wrong rival at the wrong time. They get injured. They dislike the track. They lose focus. They tire. One mistake can break everything. But Black Caviar had avoided every trap. She had won in Melbourne. She had won in Sydney. She had won at Royal Ascot in England. She had won when she was expected to win easily. And she had won when the whole world wanted to see if she could handle pressure outside Australia. Now, in her 25th start, she carried a streak that had become bigger than a record. It had become part of her identity. Every time she ran, people wondered if this would be the day. Every time she answered the same way. When the gates opened, Black Caviar broke smoothly and settled into the race. Jockey Luke Nolen knew the mare beneath him better than anyone. He had ridden her through nearly all of her career. He knew her power, her rhythm, her cruising speed, and the feeling of sitting on a horse who could make top-class sprinters look ordinary. The field tried to stay close. For a few moments, they could believe they were in the race. Then Black Caviar began to move. She did not need to be dramatic. She did not need to come from last or win by 30 lengths. Her greatness was different. She traveled with calm control, then quickened with the kind of power that made races feel decided before they were over. Down the stretch, the crowd rose. Nolen let her stride. Black Caviar went clear. She crossed the finish line first. Again, 25 starts, 25 wins. Her perfect career was complete. She had won 15 Group 1 races, become one of the greatest sprinters the world had ever seen, and retired with a record that looked almost unreal. 25 races, 25 victories. In a sport where losing is normal and perfection almost never lasts, Black Caviar had never been beaten. This is the story of Black Caviar, the horse that never lost, how an Australian mare became a national hero, how she carried perfection across continents, how one race at Royal Ascot almost ended the streak, and why her 25-race unbeaten career remains one of the most extraordinary runs in modern horse racing. Black Caviar was born on August 18, 2006, in Victoria, Australia. She was bred by Rick Jameson and foaled at Gilgai Farm, a breeding operation that would become forever connected to her name. She was a dark bay mare, almost black in appearance, and that helped inspire the name that would later become famous across the racing world, Black Caviar. It sounded luxurious, it sounded powerful, it sounded different. Her sire was Bel Esprit, a talented sprinter who had shown high-class ability in Australia. Her dam was Helsinga, a mare who would become important not only because of Black Caviar, but also because she produced other talented horses, including All Too Hard. On paper, there was speed in Black Caviar's blood, but nobody could know that she would become one of the most perfect racehorses the sport had ever seen. As a young horse, Black Caviar was sold for 210,000 Australian dollars at the Melbourne Premier Yearling Sale. That was not cheap, but it also was not the kind of price that automatically screams legend. Many expensive yearlings never become great. Many horses with perfect pedigrees never win at the highest level. Racing is filled with promises that never become reality. Black Caviar had to prove herself. She was bought by a group of owners and sent to trainer Peter Moody, a horseman based in Melbourne. Moody was not getting a delicate, easy horse. Black Caviar had talent, but she also had physical issues that would follow her career. She had size and power, but managing that power required patience. That is one reason her record is so incredible. She was not a machine who simply ran every few weeks without problems. She had setbacks. She had soreness. She had to be managed carefully. Moody and his team had to choose her races wisely, keep her healthy, and protect the horse behind the legend. Before she became famous, she was just a promising filly preparing for her first start. That debut came on April 18, 2009, at Flemington. Most racing stories begin with uncertainty. A young horse comes to the track and nobody knows exactly what will happen. The public may hear whispers. Trainers may have private hopes. Owners may dream. But the truth only appears when the gates open. Black Caviar's truth appeared quickly. She won easily. The margin was 5 lengths, and the performance made people pay attention. It was not just that she won her first race. It was the way she did it. She looked strong, controlled, and far better than the horses around her. 1 start. 1 win. It meant nothing by itself, but it began everything. Her second start came in the Blue Sapphire Stakes at Caulfield. Again, she won. This time, people were starting to understand that she had serious ability. Her speed was obvious, but so was her presence. She did not look like a horse struggling to figure out racing. She looked like she already knew she was better. Later in 2009, she won the Danehill Stakes at Flemington. 3 starts, 3 wins. Then physical issues interrupted her progress. Black Caviar had to be given time. In many careers, that kind of stop-start beginning can slow momentum and make people wonder whether a horse will ever reach full potential. But with Black Caviar, the breaks may have helped preserve her. She was not rushed into becoming a star. She was allowed to become one. In 2010, she returned and kept winning. She captured the Australia Stakes at Moonee Valley. She won the Shalati Stakes at Caulfield. Then she won the Schweppes Stakes, also known as the Moir Stakes, at Moonee Valley. Each race added another number to the streak. 4, 5, 6. At this point, Australia knew she was very good. But the moment that pushed her into a higher level came in November 2010 at Flemington in the Patnack Farm Classic. This was a Group 1 race, the highest level of racing. Black Caviar was no longer just protecting an unbeaten record against lesser company. She was stepping onto the main stage against serious sprinters. If there was any weakness, this was the kind of race that could reveal it. Instead, she dominated. She won by 4 lengths, beating a strong field and earning her first Group 1 victory. 7 starts, 7 wins. The unbeaten streak was no longer just a fun detail. It was becoming the center of the story. Australia had a new sprinting star, and every race now carried the same tension. Could anyone beat her? In 2011, Black Caviar became a phenomenon. She won the Lightning Stakes at Flemington, then the Newmarket Handicap, then the William Reed Stakes, then the T.J. Smith Stakes, then the BTC Cup, then the Patnack Farm Classic again. Her record kept growing. 8 wins, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. By the end of 2011, she had become the best sprinter in the world. She had beaten Australia's best. She had won major races in different conditions. She had carried the pressure of being unbeaten and made it look almost routine. But there was a danger in that. When a horse keeps winning, people can become numb to greatness. They start expecting the impossible. A Group 1 win becomes normal. A perfect record becomes normal. Dominance becomes normal. Black Caviar made winning look so easy that people almost forgot how hard it was. That is what separates her career from many others. She was not winning one famous race and living off that moment. She was building a streak race by race, and every new victory made the pressure heavier. Because the longer perfection lasts, the more fragile it becomes. One loss, and the perfect story is gone. In 2012, the challenge grew bigger. Black Caviar was no longer just an Australian star. She was a global name. Racing fans around the world wanted to know if she could prove herself outside Australia. It is one thing to dominate at home. It is another thing to travel across the world, handle a new environment, and win under completely different pressure. The target became Royal Ascot in England. Royal Ascot is one of the most famous racing meetings in the world. It is not just a sporting event. It is history, tradition, royalty, fashion, pressure, and international attention all packed into one stage. Australian sprinters had gone there before and won. But for Black Caviar, the trip carried something heavier. She was unbeaten. She was expected to win. And if she lost, the entire world would see it. Before the trip, she continued winning in Australia. She won the CF Stakes. She won the Lightning Stakes again. She won the William Reid again. She won the Robert Sangster Stakes. Then she went to Morphettville and won the Goodwood. 21 starts. 21 wins. Now she was going overseas. The journey itself was a risk. Horses are not machines. Long-distance travel can affect them. New surroundings can unsettle them. Different tracks can feel unfamiliar. The weather, the ground, the routine, the atmosphere. Everything changes. And with a horse like Black Caviar, every small detail mattered because the whole world was waiting for perfection. On June 23, 2012, Black Caviar ran in the Diamond Jubilee Stakes at Royal Ascot. For Australian fans, the race happened late at night back home, but millions were watching or following updates. This was not just a horse race. It felt like a national event. Their unbeaten champion had traveled to England to defend her reputation. When the race began, Black Caviar looked like herself. She moved powerfully and took control. For most of the race, it seemed like the story would be simple. She was better. She was going to win again. Luke Nolen sat confidently, believing he had the race under control. Then, near the finish, something frightening happened. Nolen eased down too early. Black Caviar began to shorten stride. The horses behind her were coming. For the first time in a long time, the streak looked in danger. The finish line was close, but so were the challengers. Moonlight Cloud, a top French mare, was charging late. The gap was shrinking with every stride. The perfect record, the Australian pride, the entire unbeaten story suddenly came down to a few desperate seconds. Black Caviar reached the wire first. By a head, she had won. But it was close. Too close. The reaction was complicated. In the record book, it was another victory. 22 starts, 22 wins. A Group 1 victory at Royal Ascot. Proof that she could travel across the world and still beat elite international competition. But the race also scared people. Afterward, it was revealed that Black Caviar had suffered muscle injuries during the race. She had not been at her best in the final strides. What looked like a near disaster was not just a jockey misjudging the finish. The mare had been hurting and still found a way to win. That made the victory even more remarkable and even more nerve-wracking. For the first time, fans had seen how fragile perfection could be. Black Caviar was still unbeaten, but the streak had nearly ended on the other side of the world. If the race had been a few yards longer, the story might have changed forever. But it was not longer. She won. That is what champions do. After Royal Ascot, Black Caviar returned to Australia and was given time to recover. There was speculation about retirement, but she came back in 2013 for one final campaign. By then, her status was almost untouchable. She was not simply a racehorse anymore. She was a symbol of Australian sporting greatness. Fans wore her colors. Crowds came just to see her. News outlets followed her movements. Every start felt like a public celebration and a collective holding of breath. She returned in the Lightning Stakes at Flemington in February 2013. The race had been renamed the Black Caviar Lightning in her honor. That alone showed how important she had become. Most horses have races named after them long after they retire. Black Caviar was running in a race that already carried her name, and she won it. 23 starts, 23 wins. Then she won the William Reed Stakes again. 24 starts, 24 wins. Only one race remained. The T.J. Smith Stakes at Royal Randwick on April 13, 2013. Black Caviar entered the race with the chance to reach 25 wins from 25 starts. It would be her third T.J. Smith Stakes victory and her 15th Group 1 win. The crowd knew they might be watching the final act. They did not know for certain, but the feeling was there. A perfect career cannot go on forever. Every story eventually asks for an ending. Black Caviar gave hers the right one. She won easily, 25 from 25. After the race, the decision was made. She was retired. No comeback, no extra risk, no final attempt to stretch the streak one race too far. She left unbeaten. That is rare. Many champions keep racing until something goes wrong. They lose, they get hurt, they fade. They are remembered for greatness, but also for the day it ended. Black Caviar's connections chose to protect the perfect record and the horse herself. She had done enough, more than enough. She retired with 25 wins from 25 starts, including 15 Group 1 victories. She was named Australian Racehorse of the Year 3 times and was ranked the world's champion sprinter for 4 consecutive years, from 2010 through 2013. She earned nearly 8 million Australian dollars and became one of the most famous racehorses in Australian history. But numbers alone do not explain Black Caviar. To understand her, you have to understand what it felt like when she ran. There was a calmness to her dominance. She was not a horse who needed chaos. She did not rely on wild comebacks or dramatic photo finishes. Most of the time, she simply traveled better than the horses around her. While others were being pushed, she looked comfortable. While others were trying to keep up, she seemed to have more waiting. That kind of superiority is almost frightening in a sprinter. Sprint races happen fast. There is not much time to recover from mistakes. A slow start can ruin everything. One rival with sharp speed can create pressure. One blocked path can end a streak. In a long race, a great horse may have time to overcome trouble. In a sprint, everything happens immediately. Black Caviar had to be sharp every time, and every time, she was. That is what makes 25 straight so extraordinary. It was not 25 carefully protected wins against weak competition. It included Group 1 races, major sprint events, travel, pressure, and an international challenge at Royal Ascot. It included different tracks and different conditions. It included days when everyone expected her to win, and anything less would have been treated like disaster. She carried that pressure better than almost any horse ever. Her partnership with Luke Nolen became part of the story. He was there for the biggest moments, including the Royal Ascot scare. That ride became one of the most discussed of her career, but it also showed the strength of their connection. Nolen knew her power, and for almost every race, he guided her with confidence. Peter Moody's training was equally important. Managing a horse like Black Caviar required more than entering races and hoping talent would be enough. Her physical issues had to be handled. Her schedule had to be planned. Her body had to be protected. Greatness needed care. That is easy to forget when a horse keeps winning. Fans see the races. They see the streak. They see the celebration. But behind every start were decisions. When to run, when to rest, when to travel, when to stop. The reason Black Caviar reached 25 for 25 was not only because she was fast, it was because the people around her understood how special she was and did not waste her. That is part of her legacy too. She was not overused. She was not asked to prove herself until something broke. She was allowed to leave perfect. After retirement, Black Caviar became a broodmare. Her fame continued through her offspring and through the memory of the streak. Statues, tributes, and race names kept her place in Australian sport alive. She was inducted into the Australian Racing Hall of Fame in 2013, the same year she retired. Then, in August 2024, news came that Black Caviar had died. She was euthanized shortly before her 18th birthday after complications connected to laminitis, a serious hoof condition. Tributes poured in from across racing and beyond. For many Australians, it felt like losing more than a racehorse. It felt like saying goodbye to an athlete who had given the country one of its cleanest and most joyful sporting stories. Her death added sadness to the legacy, but it did not change what she had done. Black Caviar's racing story remained perfect. There is something powerful about that word. Perfect. In sports, it is almost never real. Even the greatest athletes lose. The greatest teams have bad games. The greatest horses meet days when the track, distance, rival, or timing is wrong. Perfection is usually a myth people talk about after one amazing performance. Black Caviar made it a career. 25 races, 25 wins. That is why the title fits. The horse that never lost. It is not an exaggeration. It is not just a dramatic hook. It is the truth of her record. Every time she entered the gate, she came out still unbeaten. That simplicity is what makes the story so easy to understand. You do not need to know horse racing to understand 25 for 25. You do not need to know what a Group 1 is. You do not need to know Australian sprinting. You only need to know that in a sport where almost every horse loses eventually, Black Caviar never did. But the deeper story is about pressure. At the beginning, she was a talented filly. Then she became a star. Then she became a champion. Then she became a national symbol. By the end, every race carried the weight of the whole streak. Opponents were not just trying to win a race. They were trying to become the horse that beat Black Caviar. Every jockey wanted the upset. Every trainer wanted the perfect plan. Every fan feared the one mistake that could end it. Still, she kept winning. That is why her career felt different. Winning once proves talent. Winning 10 times proves class. Winning 25 times without a loss proves something almost beyond normal racing logic. It proves consistency, soundness, speed, management, courage, and a little bit of racing luck. Black Caviar had all of it. Her Royal Ascot win may not have been her easiest performance, but it may have been the race that made the story complete. If she had stayed only in Australia, critics overseas could have asked whether she was protected. By going to England and winning at one of the world's most famous meetings, she answered that question. It almost went wrong, but that is part of why people still talk about it. Great stories need danger. Royal Ascot gave Black Caviar's perfect career its closest escape. The T.J. Smith Stakes gave it the perfect ending. In that final race, there was no near disaster, no desperate head bob, no late scare. She simply won like the champion she was and walked away with the record untouched. That is the ending every unbeaten athlete dreams of. Most do not get it. Black Caviar did. When people compare great racehorses, arguments never end. Secretariat had the greatest single performance. Man o' War had the ancient legend. Frankel went 14 for 14 in Europe. Zenyatta won 19 straight before her only loss. Winx later built a huge winning streak of her own in Australia. Each horse has a different claim to greatness. Black Caviar's claim is simple. She never lost, and she did it 25 times. That is why she belongs in the conversation. Not because she ran the same distances as Secretariat or chased the same races as American Triple Crown horses. She was a sprinter. Her world was speed. Her greatness came from being ready instantly, from controlling fast races, from beating specialists at their own game. She was not trying to be a Derby horse. She was not trying to be a mile-and-a-half champion. She was Black Caviar, and nobody beat her at what she did best. That is what makes her legacy clean. No one can say she lost her final race. No one can say the streak ended. No one can say there was one horse who finally found the answer. There was no answer. Only retirement. Only 25 wins. Only perfection. On April 13th, 2013, when Black Caviar crossed the finish line at Royal Randwick, the crowd was not just cheering a victory. They were cheering the completion of something that may never happen the same way again. A mare had carried an unbeaten record through Australia, across the world, back home, and all the way to the end. No blemish, no defeat, No final heartbreak, just the perfect finish. Black Caviar began as a powerful dark, filly with speed in her blood and questions in front of her. She became a champion, then a superstar, then a national icon. She gave fans a streak they could count, a color pattern they could wear, a name they could chant, and a story that never needed rewriting. Because every chapter ended the same way. She won. And when the racing was over, the number stayed exactly where she left it. 25 races, 25 victories.